episode 19, possibly, of the Hilo Stitch podcast. I am your host, Kristen, and I am here to talk to you about what else? Knitting. I will also be talking about knitting pattern design, other goings-on in the fiber arts community, and may or may not mention Diego Luna at some point during the episode. So thank you very much for joining me. A special thank you to my Patreon patrons for supporting the podcast, and a special welcome to anyone who is checking out the podcast for the first time. So if you don't know me already, my name is Kristen Janik. I'm a knitting pattern designer and knitting instructor. I am also mom to 2 little boys, wife to a very tall man from Peru, and we live in the Maryland suburbs of Washington, D.C. I also enjoy baseball, yoga, gardening, wine, all of which I occasionally talk about on the podcast, but it is mostly about the knitting. So let's go ahead and start talking about it. So here we are, into the 6th week, I think, of quarantine, lockdown, stay at home, whatever you want to call it. Time has lost all meaning, so as I said, I think this is episode 19. I also think it's Wednesday. Could be wrong. I know it's a school day, but that's all I know. So here we are. We're pushing through. I just had JJ's IEP meeting on Google Hangouts. Maryland schools are closed through the 15th of May. I expect them to shut down for the rest of the school year, but no, they're kind of just going every few weeks. So, yeah. The good news is that today, at least, the weather is nice. We had a really mild winter, so we barely had any snow. It never got super, super cold. Usually we'll have at least a few weeks where temperatures are maybe in the 20s, and then we'll get a few cold snaps where temperatures are in the teens. We didn't have that really this year. We've had a few pretty cold days here and there, but overall we had a pretty mild winter. But spring has just been rainy and mostly in the 50s. Usually by now we're even having an occasional day here and there in the 80s. We haven't had any of those yet. We have had a few nice days, but for the most part it has just been wet and damp and gray and barely scraping up into the 50s. So, but today it is right now about 70 degrees and at least a little bit sunny, so that is something. I have my iced coffee today instead of hot coffee. Ollie woke me up at 3:30, 4 in the morning, and he comes and says that he wants to sleep on our bed, but then he doesn't sleep. He just squirms and fidgets and plays around. So, you know what swatches are good for? Toasters. There we go. So I tried to let him sleep in our bed for a few minutes, and that wasn't working. So I picked him up, put him back in his bed. And by his bed, I mean the mattress on the floor in JJ's room where he has been sleeping for months, because he doesn't want to sleep in his own room, and he's happy sleeping there, generally speaking. So I went and put him back in bed, and he stayed in bed and fell back asleep, but I had a hard time falling back asleep, and then when I did, I had weird anxiety dreams, which I know a lot of people are having now, and I already, before all of this, was dealing with anxiety, so I'm kind of used to anxiety dreams, but I still, certainly don't enjoy them. So definitely a 2 coffee kind of day. Usually in Chatterbox, I kind of talk about everything that's going on, but there's just not that much going on. My brother-in-law and his fiance are still here with us. This is the 5th week, I want to say. Peru's borders are still closed. They are on a list for repatriation flight, but they are not, I suppose, a super high priority. So they are still here. I am still going a little bit crazy with very little personal, alone, quiet time. And in fact, right now my kids are having a snack, but when they're done, they'll be coming up here and probably interrupting me as I record the podcast. I had, like many other people, have made sourdough bread. I'll see if I can pop a picture in here. This is my second loaf that I made. So I made the starter, and I had tried a couple years ago to do the starter and just couldn't seem to get anything going, but it worked this time. The first sourdough bread I made, the recipe calls for bread flour, and I don't have any. We have plenty of all-purpose flour. So the first loaf I made just came out very, very dense. And kind of like the ends were edible, and I think I tossed the rest. This is the second. It's definitely still denser than I would like, but it is a great improvement, and it is definitely edible. I assume I will do much better if I ever get my hands on some actual bread flour. But I feel like I'm making progress, and my starter, which I named Charlie, mostly because everyone said you had to name your sourdough starter, is living happily in the fridge, and I hope continue to make, a loaf or so of sourdough bread a week. I really like sourdough bread, and the good news is that nobody else here really likes it that much, so I get to eat most of it. Well, maybe that's not such a good thing. I, in the past, used to make bread more often. I have the book Artisan Bread in 5 Minutes a Day. So I used to do the whole thing. We make a big batch of the dough and then keep it in the fridge and pull a chunk out and make a fresh loaf of bread. So I got the breadstone, and but since having kids, I haven't really done it much. The value of homemade bread is lost on them. But I am enjoying the sourdough bread. It is excellent with a slice of extra sharp cheddar and then some sliced Granny Smith apple, which was my snack today. So other than making bread and living with house guests, I don't have a whole lot more to chat about, so I guess we'll have to start talking about some knitting. Okay, if we're on and off the needles, I am very excited to announce that I actually have something off the needles. I will go ahead and put a few pictures in here first. And now I will give you a little bit more of a close-up. So this is my Breeze Racerback. This is a pattern by Jessie Mae Martinson. It smells really good. I got the lavender Euclid, I think. Oh, we'll wash. It smells good. I knit mine with a single ply fingering weight held double with a lace weight mohair. So my single ply fingering weight was from Skinny Dipping. Colorway is Blue Raspberry Slurpee. And the lace weight mohair is from Little Fox Yarn, and it is called Blue Boy. So they look just gorgeous together. In fact, they almost, the blue, because the Blue Raspberry Slurpee is sort of a blue shot through with a little bit of purple, but the blue in that almost matches exactly the blue in the lace weight. So it really is mostly just giving it a nice halo and a nice texture, and maybe kind of muting it just a teensy bit. So of course this is a racer back. It has a V-neck in the front, the racer back in the back. The only modification I made here was to join the bands with Kitchener stitch instead of a 3-needle bind off. That was really it. I love it. It is so soft. I can wear it right next to the skin. And as you can see, it has a very sort of deep V, deep armholes. So wearing a bra with this is not really, unless you want to show everybody your bra, maybe a sports bra or a bralette. But it can definitely be worn, you know, just right next to the skin. Unfortunately, since we have house guests, going braless is not really an option for me right now. I think I might be the only woman in America wearing a bra right now. Because, you know, just not comfortable with that. So I am very happy with it. I am so happy that it is done. It is a warm day today, but the temperature is going to go back down, and I'm hopeful that I will get a few chances to wear this. And again, if I had a racerback, like a closer fitting racerback tank, I could wear that under this, but I don't. I do have some like kind of close fitting camisoles that I wear under other clothes, but none of them are racerback, and I don't like them kind of sticking out like that. So I'm so happy to finally have something accomplished. This is a wonderful pattern, very straightforward. You know, it's mostly just you're knitting in stockinette stitching the round from the bottom up, and then you shape the various straps, and you're done. And I'm currently using the swatch as a coaster. I've seen some other versions of this where people had done kind of like a fade. I think that would be had I thought of that ahead of time, I might have done that. It looks really cute that way, but this is a great, easy, comfortable fit pattern. Of course, it is sort of a minimal coverage top, and minimal coverage mixed with wool is maybe not always the best choice. I bet you could do it in some linen or cotton linen blend or something like that, but you'd really have to keep your eye on the gauge and how much that's going to stretch out and things like that. But that's something to think about. So that's a really cute pattern. And that is the first thing that I have accomplished for my Make 9 2020. I haven't even started anything else for it. And in fact, the next thing that I'm gonna start is not even gonna be from my Make 9 2020, I don't think. The next thing I'm going to do is another Jessie May pattern. And I'm not like a big bandwagon knitter. I really appreciate the work of other designers. But since I'm designing my own stuff, you know, I don't have a lot of time for personal knitting, but two, my goal with knitting is to make something that's very unique. So if like every single person is knitting the same thing, not so unique, but in this case, I find her stuff very wearable. So the next thing that I'm gonna make are the ripple butt shorts. This is a reward project I have waiting for me because I am currently working on a design for a magazine that I hate. Not the magazine, the design. It's just, I'm just over it. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm not interested in knitting it. I don't want to write the pattern. I am not interested in the finished project. I'm so done with it. But I've signed a contract, so I kind of got to keep doing it. So this will be my reward for if and when I get that done. And the yarn I have for it is just so fun. So this is La Bien-Aimée, and it is whatever her DK weight base is. So I don't know if it has she has special names for her bases, or if it's just DK Merino or whatever. I'll look it up and put it in the show notes. This is a DK weight. I also don't remember off the top of my head the name of this colorway. So I will look that up too. But as you can see, it is a beautiful grello, gray, yellow, gold mix here. So I'm really excited. I might be able to get the shorts out of one skein, but I think it's probably going to go into the second skein. I do have two skeins. I bought this at the India Untangled trunk show or pop-up shop or whatever they call it before Rhinebeck in October. So this is a reward project that I have waiting for me when I get that design that I hate off the needles, and I can start some ribble butt shorts. I haven't cast on anything else that is not a design. I do want to keep making some progress on my Make 9. All right, so the next thing I think that I'm going to cast on from my Make 9 for Make 9 2020 challenge is the Lionheart shawl. This is a pattern by, weird. I mean, you think her name would be right on there. This is a pattern by Gabrielle Vezina. You know, my French. Gabrielle Knits is her. You can see her little logo up there. And 3 yarns that I'm using for this project. I love these. This one is from Pachinku Yarn. That is a Peruvian-based, Cusco-based natural dye cooperative, which is managed by Dana, who I got to meet when I was in Peru. And she, like me, is married to a Peruvian man, but she is a gringa. And so this is one of the skeins I actually had bought from her when I was in Cusco. It is whatever DK weight yarn is. I don't know what the colorway name is. I'm sure I might be able to look it up, or it could be a one-off. You can see there's no label on this. Like, she just brought yarn that they had finished dyeing. It wasn't labeled or anything. So that's this one. This one is Magpie Fiber Swanky DK, and this is Harpoon, which is sort of like a gray with brown undertones, which I think is going to go well with this, which is one of the club colors from Fiber for the People's Oxide Club. It is round 4, so that was a 6-round club, so this is the 4th one. So it doesn't have a official colorway name. If she decides to add it to her regular color library, then she would presumably give it a name, and I don't know if she will or not, but you can see there's just a cream with some brown and red dark gray speckles. So this is I think a great color combo for this project. As of course you can see, it is not wound up. My husband and brother-in-law have been working in my dining room, which is where I usually wind yarn. So, and of course, again, I've got to finish that project that I hate first, and then maybe I can get started on this. But I think that's going to be the next project that I start from my Make 9 2020. And then I think after I do that one, I'm going to start a sweater for the fall, probably my Andawa. But that is what I have for On and Off the Needles in this episode. Okay, Adelante, where I give you sneak peeks of upcoming designs. I do have a lot of designs in progress. One is the project I hate for the magazine, so I obviously can't show you that. So I will focus on a couple that I can show you, obviously. These are indie designs that will be published hopefully in the next couple of months. So first, I think I had showed you several episodes ago, and if I can find it, I'll link which one it was in the show notes. The skeins of yarn that I got for designing a pattern for the Maryland Fiber Art Studio Tour, which is supposed to be the first weekend in June. So what their theme was this year was neutrals with pops of color. And what I did was to take all the neutrals and wind them all up together in this kind of gradient. So of course the first color has already been used up. The first color was a dark brown. You can see it's going into light brown and then sort of a brownish gray. And then the last one is sort of a gray blue. So what I'm doing is using this sort of gradient mini skeins as kind of the background for the shawl, and then I'm going to add in the pops of color in different stitch patterns. So I started pretty simply with just it's working outward from this point. So you're just increasing 1 stitch every right side row. I guess I should hold it the other way, because then you can see the triangle shape forming. So I started with the darkest color of the gradient and started just with garter stitch stripes, adding in pops of color. Then I switched to eyelets. And then the last eyelet row I did was sort of a double eyelet row to start transitioning into a new stitch pattern. And so this, let me see if I can get close up. Doesn't make it blown out. It's kind of a, it'll look nicer when it's blocked, but this is, you're picking up a stitch a couple rows below and crossing it over the pops of color stripes. So I started in on that. Then right in here, obviously you can see that I transitioned from the darker brown into the lighter brown. And I think it blends pretty well when you pull back. And with the lighter brown, I'm using this, you know, these pops of colors, which is like a white speckle kind of, it looks almost like the funfetti, the frosting that's like a white frosting with sprinkles in it. All right, so that's what it looks like. So it just reminds me of birthday cake. So now I'm onto this mini skein. The first mini skein I used was this one. Okay. So I've got 2 more mini skeins to work into the patterns. This one's just a nice bright green. And then this one, I really like this one. So we kind of got like a green, blue, brown, kind of a very 70s mix here. So that is the design for, like I said, the Fiber Art Studio Tour in Maryland, and they are going virtual this year. So again, you know, we're all stuck inside. We're missing all of our fiber events. And the online stuff, we know it's not the same because you are not getting sort of the interaction with the other knitters, and you can't see and feel and touch. But it is certainly better than nothing. And it's so important to help small businesses keep going at this time. I think there are going to be a lot of businesses that are not going to make it. I can definitely tell you that my pattern sales are down, and it is perfectly understandable, but you know, if you are able to support small businesses, that is obviously a good thing, and these kind of virtual events are a nice way to sort of continue doing that. So that is going to be happening online in early June, the first weekend in June. I really got to get moving on this. I'm kind of making it up as I go along. So I've got a selection of stitch patterns that I have taken from various places that I'm either going to use or I'm going to kind of modify. But I'm kind of just playing with the color as it comes. So I don't know what's going to happen next. I am kind of trying to avoid brioche for this one just because I want it to be a little bit less, I don't want it to be, you know, too advanced or forcing people to learn new techniques, because what this would be is that for people who participate in the event, you'll be able to get the pattern for free for a certain amount of time. So if you make a purchase, you'll be able to get the pattern for free, but you have to buy it, you know, get it within 48 hours. Otherwise, no. And for people who don't participate in the event, it will certainly just be a regular pattern in my shop. But this is something I want to be sort of accessible to everybody. So I want to try to kind of avoid a more advanced technique like brioche, even though I do think, you know, it works. 2-color brioche is such a nice way to showcase 2 different colors together. But we will see what happens. So this is one of the 2 indie patterns I am working on right now. And then the second pattern I'm working on is the poor thing that I had to rip out last time. If you watched the previous episode, presumably 18, you will recall that I said that I had a giant screw up and worked my entire sample without double checking my gauge, and my gauge was wrong and I had to rip out the whole thing. So I have now redone it. I'm sort of halfway through a row here, so it's a little hard to show off. So I've redone it. So this is the body of this. Is a sleeveless top design that I'm doing in collaboration with Fiber for the People. It is obviously not blocked because I'm still working on it. So I've redone it. This is the body with this nice pleat in the front. I have checked and it is the correct size. And now I am working on the yoke, which you can see is just being done in this beautiful, beautiful lace weight silk mohair in this gorgeous color. So the reason I'm halfway through a row here is that I need to do my center neck bind off. So this is just about done here. The front and then the back is going to have a V-neck, a very deep V-neck in the back. And then I just have to pick up all the armhole and neckline trim and it'll be done. So I was originally planning to release this pattern in April. That's obviously not going to happen since I screwed up the sample. Also, you know, my work schedule now is much more sporadic. Not that it was great to begin with, but I'm homeschooling my kids now. I don't get, you know, free time as much. My husband does usually take the kids after lunch for an hour, hour and a half. So I get a little bit of work done in there. The other problem is just, you know, we're all stuck at home in this miserable situation. And so work is not going as well as it could be. The motivation, it's hard to find. So I am still hoping to release this in the very near future. I'm kind of bummed. The next pattern I release is going to be my 100th pattern, and I would love it to be this, but I have like a sock pattern in the works that is going to be done much more quickly because it's already in testing and stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It'll be a nice pattern, but you know, I'm such a weird Fiber for the People fangirl, and I'm so excited about this collaboration. It'd be kind of awesome if it was number 100, but we'll see how it goes. I should have this done by the end of the week, as I said. It just needs a back and some trim, although I do have to keep working on that project I hate as well, so maybe it won't be done by the end of the week, but I really hope it is. I really, really want to get moving on that. So those are sneak peeks of the 2 indie designs that I currently have in progress. I can't show you the design that I hate. And I definitely have some other things in the pipeline coming up. It's weird to think about, but it is just about May, which means it is going to be starting to be time to start working on sweaters for the fall, which I have several planned and I'm very excited about. So that's what I have to show you in this episode. All right, stash flashes in this episode. Yes, there is more yarn in my house. I don't know how it happens. I really don't. So the first one I want to show you is kind of a design yarn, and that is at the end of 2019, I released the Dodgy Pullover pattern, designed or intended for men, but it's a very kind of sort of a unisex textured design that would work equally well for women, I think. So what I decided to do is to update the pattern to include 10 sizes. I think it currently just has 5. Yeah, extra small, medium, large, 1x2, something like that for men. So I'm going to update the pattern to include 10 sort of unisex sizes, and then include specifications specifically for women for length, so that, you know, for, I guess, weirdly enough, women tend to not be as tall as men and things like that. So I'll be including sort of variations to address size differences in the length, so body length, armhole depth, but the basic construction of the sweater is going to be the same. It is a bottom-up drop shoulder, no waist shaping, just sort of a very casually fitting pullover. And so I got yarn to make a new version of the sweater for myself. So I'm sort of showing off how, you know, how maybe it will look on women, modeled with whatever my intended ease is, and I don't remember off the top of my head. But so my intention for women is for it to sort of be a more cropped, not like cropped, like it's not like right under your boobs or anything, but like, you know, kind of hitting right at the waistband, but sort of a loose fitting in the body, but not, you know, super bulky sleeves. So that's where some of those differences in length are going to come in. So anyway, I am planning to reknit the sweater, and I got yarn to do that. So this matches my shirt. This is Blue Sky Fibers wool stock, which is a worsted weight yarn, and the colorway is called Lilac Bloom. And this is interesting. It says that the gauge is 5 to 6 stitches per inch. That's not what I would call worsted weight yarn, but the yardage is pretty spot on for a worsted weight yarn. So it's 50 grams, 123 yards. Just as 100% fine Highland wool, so not a whole lot of information there. It is applied yarn. It is definitely, I don't know if you can see, it's got, you can kind of see it's got some fuzz, so it is definitely a little more rustic than, you know, a merino or something like that, but it's definitely not scratchy by any means. Let's see, it looks like it's a 2-ply yarn. This is pretty perfect. The original men's version was knit in Knit Picks, whatever they're kind of, I'm gonna link it in the show notes. They, last year or the year before, they started carrying sort of a little bit more rustic, neutral colored, undyed wool. I don't remember what the base is called off the top of my head, but it's very similar to this, except that it's undyed. It may be a little bit heftier. I think it might be closer to an Aran weight, but I think this is going to be really cute for the remake of the Dodgy sweater. So it's called Lilac Bloom. I want to say this is a little bit tonal, so you can see it's kind of got some paler purples and then some darker purples. So it's certainly not variegated by any means, but there's a little more depth to the color than sort of your commercial solid color yarn. I have not even started swatching. Again, project I hate first, and then I can get on with that. I did kick up a skein though, so I can swatch when I'm ready. So that is sort of design yarn, official yarn. I also got, I will just show you, I got two of each of these. So this is yarn from Kitty Pryde Fibers, and this is part of her diversity collection. So you'll recall a couple months back, a particular indie dyer thought it would be very clever to release a collection of colorways making a mockery of social justice issues, which is not clever at all. And sort of in response, Kitty Pryde Fibers decided to create her own, much more positively themed diversity collection. So this is her worsted base, which is called Tabby Worsted. And this one is called Gender Diversity. So you can see this is just a beautiful, beautiful purple. And this one is called Situation Untenable, which is just one, a fantastic name, and two, an absolutely gorgeous yarn. So my screen is looking a little greenish today. You know, in an ideal world, I would have recorded earlier, but I had to go to my son's IEP meeting. So this isn't a great, you know, this could be a better view of the color, but it's a beautiful purple gray with some various colored speckles shot through, and it goes so well with this. Now I have, or had, a worsted weight shawl planned for sometime in the next few months. Just sort of a vague idea of a worsted weight shawl that I had already bought yarn for. So one possibility is that I'm going to swap the yarns out and use these instead. I haven't really decided on that yet, because the yarn that I had picked for it is a little bit more two rustic style yarns that I think are going to be kind of more in line with the kind of shawl I want to create. So maybe, maybe not, or maybe I will come up with another project for this. So like I said, I have two of each colorway, and they're 218 yards each, so that's 880 yards, more or less. So plenty of yarn to work with. I'm not 100% sure what it's going to be, but it is beautiful. And I am happy to have it. And then lastly, I bought yarn for one of my E19 projects, and I'm kind of on the fence about it. So I bought yarn for my sheer V sweater, which is another Jessie Mae Martinson pattern. And I will go ahead and pop a picture in here just so you have an idea. And so this pattern is fingering weight with an optional, I'm gonna say optional, obviously the sheer V is created by using a lace weight mohair alpaca. So it's not optional, but she gives various options for if you want to use the mohair throughout the whole thing, if you just want it on the sleeves, if you just want it on the body, whatever. So the fingering weight yarn I bought is this. This is Manos del Uruguay Fino, which I used last year for my lace hem tee, my test knit for Karina Spencer. And I really liked working with it. It is beautiful and soft and just delightful to wear. And the color I used for that, I believe, was Porcelain, which was a very, very pale cream. This is sort of like the next step darker, and this one is called Antique Lace. So as you can see, this is kind of silvery cream browns all mixed together. So it's sort of it's a neutral, but it's like a variegated neutral. So I thought this would be really cute for my sweater. Sort of to create a neutral, kind of go with everything piece. I didn't want to spend too much money on this, as I said, in terms of revenue. Things are not looking great. currently. So I want to keep things economically priced. So the yarn I got for my mohair silk is just Valley Yarns, which is Webb's in-house brand. And this colorway is called Acorn, I believe. It's not even written here, but as I recall, it's Acorn. But I am just not sold on it. I mean, I think they will go well together. Like, there is plenty of this kind of brown in here. Well, I think it might just be a little bit too blah. So, I mean, this is a very economically priced brand. So if I end up not using it, first of all, I didn't buy enough. I wasn't paying attention, so I didn't order enough. Assuming that I want to use it throughout the whole sweater, which is my plan. But if I don't end up, I only bought 2 of these for some reason. I was having a bad math day or life. So if I end up not using it, it's not the end of the world. But I'm thinking it's just a little too blah. I mean, I like a good brown, but this one just, I don't know, it's not grabbing at me. So I had time to think about it. I'm certainly not going to be casting this on immediately or anything, but I think I might want to go with something a little lighter, either a real cream or maybe kind of something gray silver. So I'm not sure, but I did buy the yarn, so that's the first step into starting a project. So more yarn has found its way into my home. All right, just a quick bit of news. This weekend should be Maryland Sheep and Wool. Of course, nothing's happening ever. Nobody gets to do anything. So it is not Maryland Sheep and Wool in the traditional sense, but they are doing a sort of virtual event. So I just want to encourage you to please check that out, especially if Maryland Sheep and Wool is maybe something you usually aren't able to participate in. Again, this is obviously a very difficult time for everybody, but sort of small businesses and especially these kind of micro businesses in the fiber arts industry that are, run by 1 and 2, 3 people, are really going to be struggling. Not only do people, are just going to be cutting back on spending in general, but all of these fiber festivals and other events are usually big sources of their revenue and their income, and with all of them being canceled, that is going to have an even bigger impact. So please support small businesses if you are able to. If you are not able to make purchases, a great way to support these small and micro businesses in this industry is just to share. So if you see a yarn you like or a pattern you like, tell other people about it, put it on your social media, tell your friends and family if they, if you have crafters in your family, give it some hearts on Ravelry. That helps it, I don't know how the algorithm works, but that helps it gain some traction. Those that are hot right now or popularity lists helps other people find it. So even when you're in a position where you can't shop, it's really helpful when you share and spread the word about these great products or patterns or these virtual events, like the virtual Maryland Sheep and Wool hoopla that is going to be taking place this weekend. If you're not familiar, Maryland Sheep and Wool is usually the first full weekend in May. It is, as I understand it, the second largest sheep and wool in the country after Rhinebeck. So it is always a very popular event, and there are a lot of tangential events around it that have also been canceled. So I know the Knot House, which is a wonderful yarn store up in Frederick, They usually have a pop-up shop this weekend that's been canceled. Magpie Fibers usually has an open studio open house that's been canceled. There's usually a Needles Up in Columbia, Maryland, which is near the fairgrounds. And of course, it's not just the shopping, but it's the classes, the teachers are losing out on a lot of income as well. So it's a big loss in the fiber arts community for Maryland Sheep and Wool and everything surrounding it to sort of be canceled. And virtual events, I think we can all agree, are not quite the same, but they are still a great way to support these businesses. So I'm going to include links in the show notes to everything I can find about virtual Maryland Sheep and Wool stuff that is going on. And I also think some people are going to be doing sort of live Instagrams and things like that. So I'm going to find out as much as I can and include links in the show notes and encourage you to support in whatever way you can, whether that is shopping or sharing, just helping spread the word about these businesses. It is much appreciated, I can tell you. And it's definitely something we want to be doing now so that when this virus has become contained and the economy is hopefully regaining its legs, all of these businesses are still here with us. So again, check the show notes for links, and please check out virtual Maryland Sheep and Wool this weekend. Thank you all so much for joining me for episode 19 of the Hilo Stitch podcast. Links to everything that I've talked about can be found in the show notes at mediaperuana.com/Hilo-Stitch. If you are interested in learning more about ways to support Media Peruana Designs and the Hilo Stitch podcast, you can check out my Patreon. Special thank you to my Patreon patrons for supporting the podcast. You get lots of perks and bonuses and fun behind the scenes stuff when you support the podcast and Media Peruana Designs for as little as $1 a month. So you can find that information at patreon.com/mediaperuana. New episodes and past episodes of the Hilo Stitch podcast can be found here on my YouTube channel, as well as my design vlog series, Knit Design Studio, and my free knitting tutorials. So please like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff to help expand the reach of the podcast and the YouTube channel. If you're looking for me on social media, you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Media Peruana, and I will see you next time.